evening. I'm Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler, and welcome to tonight's video. And this one is called the Arctic Plunge. Why are we calling it the Arctic Plunge? I'm going to be showing you a lot of data tonight in the video. It's going to get very cold, very cold across the eastern United States, specifically from Friday the 23rd of December right on through the 26th of December. It's going to be very cold, much below normal across many locations in the Eastern U.S. I thought this was an appropriate picture to show today, with the title being the Arctic Plunge and what we're going to be facing. You can just see how encased some of the snow is on this guy's hood. Looks like it's the polar area, the Arctic area. I noticed the flat area behind the gentleman here, but I mean, look how instantaneous some of this ice and snow is freezing around the hood of this coat on this gentleman. I don't know if you're going to necessarily look like this with this major push of Arctic air, but certainly you'll probably feel like this guy. Let's get right into the charts. And so let's set the stage in tonight's video with the forecast for Friday, the 23rd of December, 2022. On the upper level chart here at 500 millibar on the left, showing the troughs and ridges. Notice this purple coloring here. If we look over here on the scale on the right, this is indicative of extremely or abnormally low, anomalous heights really across the Ohio Valley down to the Mid-Atlantic. This is a very intense area, upper level low. It's a very cold low, and it's going to be impacting a lot of folks from the Midwest all the way to the East Coast, up to New England, and all the way down to the Deep South as well. A deep trough over the Eastern U.S. This is on Friday afternoon, just after lunchtime. And out west we have this upper level ridge. So we're seeing a positive PNA, Pacific North American pattern. We're seeing ridging over the western U.S., milder temperatures there, and much colder temperatures here over the eastern U.S. If we look at the thickness chart, the European deterministic run from earlier today on the 20th of December, notice how tightly packed these blue dashed lines are. Each one of these dashed lines represents an isopleth, or a line of a certain value of thickness. This thickness ranges between the surface and 500 millibars at 18,000 feet above the ground. And whenever you get really extremely low values for the thickness, that indicates very cold air, an Arctic air mass. In fact, the exact classification of an Arctic air mass is anything less than 510 decameter thickness. That constitutes an Arctic air mass. And the 510 decameter thickness line by Friday early afternoon is situated over the western parts of Virginia, all the way down to the Kentucky-Tennessee border, working its way up towards southern Missouri, over towards the Central Plains states. We have the 510 decameter thickness. Anywhere north of that is considered true Arctic air. No matter how you slice it, this is going to be a very strong Arctic front that's going to be pushing through on early Friday afternoon across the Mid-Atlantic, specifically across Virginia, working its way north towards Maryland area, as well as Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey. This is going to be extremely cold air coming in behind this Arctic frontal passage. You notice some of the tighter red dash line, that thickness packing, the tighter thickness lines here, that is association with just right behind the cold front. When you see these lines packed so tightly, you're also going to have a lot of wind energy whenever you have thickness lines packed this tightly, this tight of a thickness gradient, very steep thickness gradient. In addition, you're going to have very sharp drop-offs in the temperatures of the surface as this colder air advects into the area. So overall, Friday early afternoon, looking very cold. We're going to have crashing temperatures across many locations in the eastern U.S. We have this anomalously deep trough in the eastern U.S. Again, those thicknesses are crashing here on Friday afternoon in the Mid-Atlantic. And there could even be some potential for a few flakes of snow to mix in as that Arctic front passes through, or maybe even a brief period of light snow showers. Being that the day before this event, Thursday the 22nd of December, is going to be fairly mild with some pretty good rainfall. The ground's going to be wet, and then we're also going to have ground temperatures after having the day before being about 60 degrees are just not going to be very conducive for any kind of snow accumulation across southeastern Virginia. Now, you will get some snow accumulation up here to the north where the ground's colder, across parts of eastern PA, New York State. Well, there's a 973 millibar low up here over central New York State, so you got a lot more of that lifting going on across New England in general by early Friday afternoon as the rain changes to snow. So yeah, you could definitely get some accumulating snow up higher latitudes further north. But for southeastern Virginia, mainly just looking at some wet ground and some fairly mild temperatures the day before. So if you do see some flakes in the air, it's good effect. I joked around in one of my last videos about how it always snows in Hallmark movies, and Hallmark Christmas movies. And look, we might actually see that the snow right in line with the time of year, just a couple days before Christmas. So it's gonna be nice either way. It's actually gonna feel cold on Christmas this year, and you could even see a few flakes of snow. Now let's look ahead to the big day when Christmas Eve, Santa will be coming, Christmas Eve, and he's going to have to dress really warmly because when he comes down in his sleigh on Christmas Eve to the United States, specifically anywhere from the Rocky Mountains to the East Coast, he is going to need a warm blanket. He's probably going to be thinking, this is just like the conditions up at the North Pole. I'm really surprised it's this frigid all the way down into the deep south on Christmas Eve. That's what Santa's going to be thinking. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, wow. You have extremely low thickness values by this point on Saturday, early afternoon. You see a little bit of height rises across the western U.S. Look at the graphic here on the left. This is your 500 millibar heights in decameters and the anomalies in meters. This is the European ensemble mean showing that ridging. Notice that coloring changes between Friday afternoon, the 23rd of December, and Christmas Eve, Saturday afternoon, the 24th of December. That means these heights are increasing. We're having higher height values across the western U.S. associated with this upper level ridge. So expect a very mild Christmas Eve if you live anywhere along the west coast, going down I-5 from Washington State, Oregon, down to California, looking very mild. You got a nice subtropical high there situated off the Southern California coast. And a look at the deep trough downstream now. Just frigid temperatures. And by the way, we still also see signs of that negative NAO. See these height rises, this ridge axis extending generally across the northwest Atlantic, and that ridge axis is extending towards the northeast west of Greenland. So we still have those signs of the negative NAO still present. You got a very cold air mass beneath that blocking pattern over the top. And again, it's going to be a very frigid Christmas Eve day. Overall, in the U.S., though, on Christmas Eve, it's looking fairly dry. Now, you may have some snow showers as bitterly cold air passes over these unfrozen waters of the Great Lakes. So downwind of the Great Lakes areas, you might get a little bit of snow shower activity for Christmas Eve. But by this point, it looks like some of the gradient has lessened. And so thickness gradient's not as strong. Notice how far apart these thickness lines are. And so you're probably not going to get as much accumulation with the wind not as strong. Just wanted to show you that. Now, for Christmas Day itself, the big day, 25 December 2022. How have things changed here in the upper level chart here on the left? We still see that extensive ridge from California northward into parts of western Canada. So we got a nice little ridge up here associated with that positive Pacific North American pattern still for Christmas Day. Mild, dry Christmas out west. And then there's that buckling of the jet stream. There's that deep troughing extending from Hudson Bay, Canada, working its way through cities like Montreal and Toronto, Canada, working its way south, that trough axis, all the way down to Florida. This is also going to be a very cold time period for the state of Florida. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this all plays out. We look at the graphic here on the right, the 1,000 to 500 millibar thickness chart, the latest European model run, showing that troughing continuing across the eastern U.S. Now you will notice how the packing of those thickness lines on Saturday, Christmas Eve, are way more tightly packed here. See how close these are together, these blue dashed lines? How tightly packed the lines are as compared to Sunday, Christmas Day. What does this mean? That means we expect the winds to diminish. That's going to be the big part of this real big Arctic blast is going to be the strong winds associated with it as this Arctic front moves through on Friday afternoon, the 23rd of December. You could have wind gusts 45 to 50 miles per hour, and those winds will still continue to be blowing very strongly as we have the main jet stream axis is basically passing over this area. And so you're going to have some strong winds lingering all the way into Christmas Eve, and that's going to result in very low wind chill values. I'll get to that here more in a moment. But by Christmas Day, looking dry over a large portion of the United States. For Christmas Day, you got travel plans. And then moving ahead to the day after Christmas, Monday the 26th of December. Now, some of you may have traveled to a loved one or family's house or a friend's house for just Christmas Day itself. But now the day after Christmas, you're looking at getting in the car and driving back home. What's going to be happening across the United States? We still see that upper level ridging across the western portion of the U.S., extending now a little bit further to the east. So you notice that? Christmas Day, that ridge axis is right along the U.S. West Coast. The day after Christmas, now that ridge axis is extending from Southern California, working northward into parts of Alberta province of Canada. So it is starting to move east a little bit, this ridge. We do see some troughing also now developing over the Gulf of Alaska. Alaska's been seeing some fairly mild temperatures at this point due to this anomalous upper level ridging, these blocking patterns over the Northeast Pacific. And what we're looking at downstream still for Monday the 26th of December, we're still looking at the blue coloring here, lower than normal heights. We have troughing still going on, stretching all the way down the east coast to Florida, the deep south, Interstate 10 areas also. Still going to remain very chilly. And then over here on the right, showing the thickness chart, we're starting to see, some increasing thickness values. The gradient's not nearly as tight, again, like I mentioned in the previous slide. And so lighter winds and some of the slow moderation of these Arctic air masses. One thing I will say is operational models tend to try to warm things up too quickly. I've seen it happen a lot of times. Initially, let's say, just looking at this thickness map here, let's just say the 540 line across Virginia, let's say the high temperature is about, the charts or the models might actually indicate high temperatures like in the mid 40s, when in all actuality it might be high around 40. So it takes a while when you have this kind of extreme shot of cold air for the air mass to actually modify. It's not just an overnight thing. Notice the higher thickness values out west associated with this upper level ridge where it's milder than normal and drier than normal. Notice how we have some moisture moving into the Pacific Northwest the day after Christmas as well. That's associated with this trough. Now moving ahead to Tuesday, the 27th of December, 2022, you got travel plans for, go somewhere for the New Year's holiday. Notice how this ridge is now flattened off. Now it's mainly flat. It's across the central U.S. See how more amplified the ridge is here? See how the bending of these solid black lines, these height contours is? How much more bending there is and how they build a little bit better with higher heights, the brighter oranges. On the 26th of December, now look at the 27th of December. This ridge is getting flattened out, and the main reason is you have a roaring Pacific jet that's going to be working its way from west to east across the Pacific. It's going to be working its way into the United States, and it's working to flatten the ridge, and we're actually getting more zonal flow across the central and western U.S. by this point. There's a little bit of troughing in the Pacific Northwest, so places like Seattle and Portland will get a little bit wet, or Tuesday the 27th of December. But in general, looking at the packing of these height contours, these solid black lines, I'm seeing more of a west to east jet stream starting to take place. We do still see some lingering cold from Florida working our way up the east coast, all the way to New England and in parts of eastern Canada. But we are starting to see the continent getting flooded by milder Pacific air as this jet stream makes more of a west to east motion, and it's very strong as well. Looking at the overall picture for the United States weather, if you have travel plans Tuesday the 27th of December, we still have an upper level low position over eastern Canada. So we do still have colder temperatures associated with these dashed blue thickness lines, these lower values of thickness, extending down towards the mid-Atlantic. And then we also have an interesting feature here in the northern Gulf, just south of the Mobile, Alabama area. And this is an association with a troughing pattern across the northern Gulf. I'll talk more about that here in a moment. We do have a little piece of energy associated with a little bit of light snow across the Dakotas on the 27th of December. And again, the heavier rain is confined to the west coast by the 27th of December with an approaching frontal boundary. But this piece of energy here, see this little precip in the Dakotas? This very well, we're getting indications from models that this could slide down through the base of the long wave trough and could perhaps get something going as far as storm development over the northeastern Gulf or just the east of Florida generally around the 27th of December. Now, let's look at Wednesday the 28th of December. And what we're seeing here again, very, very apparent here on the graphic on the left with the upper air chart at 500 millibars, we are seeing a very strong west to east jet stream. Highly zonal jet. The subtropical ridge over the eastern Pacific is now orientated more, the ridge axis is orientated more west to east beneath this very strong jet stream. The jet stream axis is generally in this area here between the subtropical high and this now low pressure, upper level low, over the Bering Sea. The pressure or height difference between the upper level low over the Bering Sea and this subtropical ridge to the south, we have a very large temperature gradient as well as a height gradient which accelerates these winds very quickly from west to east. So that jet is pretty much pointed straight at the Cascade Mountains of western Washington state. And sometimes what happens, you don't see it here, but sometimes what can happen is when you get those strong perpendicular winds against the Cascade Mountains, for example, you get extremely heavy precipitation that's wrung out on the western side or windward side of that mountain range. It can be very heavy precip for portions of western Washington state, working their way down towards western Oregon. What do we have here now across the east? Look at the color, how it's changed. We have the lingering cold all the way through the 27th of December. And then look at this. Look how much above normal heights are now from the Midwest to the East Coast. The Arctic air mass is a distant memory by the 28th of December as these higher heights move eastward. There is a storm potential. Here we go again. We have a little bit of troughing taking shape. I can tell by the way these thickness lines are bending. We have ridging over the central U.S. now. We have a trough still downstream of this ridge over the central U.S. and the northern plains. And so we have a little bit of troughing here. Now, what's going to happen with this energy? See how the European model just kind of sends it out to sea? This is going to be interesting to see. And I know this is the 00Z model, so the 12Z model, I believe I took a look at that and saw that this moisture a little bit closer to the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolina coast on the 20th of December. But here's the main dilemma. You're sitting here, you're saying, hey, I want some snow. Maybe we can get some snow out of this, right? If you want winter weather anywhere in the Carolinas and the Mid-Atlantic, Virginia, we're working our way north towards Maryland and Delaware, right? Problem is these temperatures are really modifying by this point, the 28th. So the likelihood of getting any frozen precipitation generally across the Carolinas and even into Virginia is not very likely because of the timing of this moisture. So even if this moisture is closer to the coast, it's most likely going to end up being rain along the coastal areas. It could be frozen precipitation out towards the Appalachians, towards the Shenandoah area of Virginia and parts of West Virginia if the moisture is close enough to the coast, if the storm track is close enough. But looking at this upper air pattern, looking at the thickness lines and how they're rebounding, this is going to be a very difficult go if you're trying to get snow out of this. This system needed to happen, say like the 26th, 2 days earlier. If this system were to happen and come up the coast as a storm, would there be plenty of Arctic air still in place? But this is where you're really going to have a problem. All right, so now let's take a look at the main storyline of tonight's video, this Arctic plunge in temperatures. This is, what I'm showing on the left will be really on both. I'm using the NOAA blend of models, okay? This takes into account all the different models. So I'm not favoring one particular model. I'm just kind of looking at the NOAA product and going with it. This is what they develop when they take the blend of all those models. And I'm showing the high temperature forecast here on the left, and I'm showing the temperature departure forecast here on the right. I'm going to be doing that for every slide as we walk through the dates. All right, so generally what we're looking at is the Arctic front is situated from western Massachusetts through Long Island, through New Jersey, Delaware, down to southeastern Virginia and eastern North Carolina, working its way southward all the way down to North Florida, right around, knocking on the door of Jacksonville, Florida by Friday. Specifically, this would be the early afternoon hours. Behind this Arctic boundary, temperatures are going to take a sharp drop, sharp tumble. We got single-digit air temperatures. This doesn't even include the wind and the resultant wind chill out here in the Midwest. We got temperatures 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Chicago's 6 above zero. We got Indianapolis situated around 3 above zero. Parts of Kentucky generally ranging from 8 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit above normal or above zero. Ohio in single digits to teens, all the way down to Tennessee. Memphis 12 degrees above zero. Down to Mississippi and Alabama, you're not escaping this. Places like the Gulf Coast, New Orleans, 35 degrees by Friday afternoon. 36 in Biloxi, Mississippi. 37 in Pensacola. Look at Texas, 35 in Houston. So very few people are going to escape this Arctic plunge. Look at the temperature anomalies here. We're talking the dark, these purple colors here. Temperature anomalies on the order of 30 degrees Fahrenheit or greater. And then you kind of see the leading edge of the anomalies and where the front is on Friday as it gets ready to push all the way off the eastern seaboard. But look at the mild surge of air ahead of the front. And this is what's resulting in more of a rain situation instead of frozen precipitation out ahead of the Arctic front. So you got temperature anomalies in the order of 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit above normal for parts of New England on Friday before that front blows through. What about Christmas Eve? All right, we are looking at very cold temperatures from the Rocky Mountains down to the Gulf of Mexico, over to the Mid-Atlantic. Florida, you have high temperatures in the 40s on Christmas Eve. Places like Houston, Texas, a high of 41. And going north here along the eastern seaboard, high temperatures generally in the upper 20s and low 30s for Virginia, as well as 20s and 30s up towards New England. The coldest temperatures on Christmas Eve are situated back in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, as well as Iowa. And then look at the northern plains states on Christmas Eve. High temperatures aren't even going to reach, they won't even reach 0 degrees. So extremely cold air is coming down, and then you see the temperature anomalies here with the darker purples and the maroon coloring, the greatest temperature departures, the coldest temperatures from normal. We see milder temperatures again for Christmas Eve from California working its way beneath that ridge up towards Oregon and Washington. But look at this dividing line here. Anywhere east of the Rockies is pretty much below normal on Christmas Eve. Now the wind chill, I mentioned this. The wind speeds are going to be there. I mean, especially with the passage of the Arctic front, winds could be gusting as high as 50 miles per hour. Further up towards New England, it could be even higher gusts. So we could see some damaging wind gusts. This Arctic front means business, and it has a lot of energy packed with it. And so look at these wind chill values. This is the 23rd of December on the left. We have 34 degrees below zero wind chill values in Ohio, 32 below zero in Indianapolis, 28 degrees below normal in Peoria, Illinois, 30 to 32, 33 degree Fahrenheit below normal wind chills, or 30 to 33 below zero wind chills across Iowa. Look at these wind chills, below zero, all the way up to 45 below zero wind chills in parts of eastern Montana and western North Dakota. This is for 23rd of December. Look at the wind chills all the way down the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf Coast in the teens by the evening of the 23rd of December. Looking on the right here, this is for Christmas Eve, and these wind chills are it's just mind-boggling to look at. We have wind chills in the 30s down into Florida, and then look all the way up the East Coast here. Wind chills are generally in the low teens all the way up the coast. Below zero wind chills continue across the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Iowa, parts of the northern plains and the Dakotas, greater than 30 degrees below zero wind chills. So just a phenomenally, this is a real frigid Arctic air mass. It's really interesting to watch its progression. Now this is the temperature forecast on the left, high temperature forecast for Christmas Day, and you really get a feel for what's going on here. This darker purple coloring here of the upper Midwest has the coldest temperatures. You're looking at 12 degrees in Chicago, 9 degrees above zero in Minneapolis, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, 17 degrees for a high, as well as parts of southeastern Virginia. It's going to be about 33 degrees Fahrenheit for a high, all the way down the Gulf Coast. Look at these high temperatures in the low 40s on the Gulf Coast along Interstate 10. Orlando, high temperature 49 on Christmas Day. And then the purple shading really does show the story here, indicating 20 plus degrees Fahrenheit below normal, anywhere from Illinois right on through Ohio, working its way all the way down to Florida, 20 degrees plus below normal, Gulf Coast, East Coast. And then out in the western U.S., notice the milder temperatures above normal readings here across the western U.S. Now, if I bring this closer to home here in Virginia Beach, these were the past 4 Christmas Day high temperatures for Virginia Beach. So from 2021, that's the far left number, over to 2018 on the far right. All right, so in 2021, the high was on Christmas Day was 69 degrees Fahrenheit. This year, it's going to be about 33. All right, 66 degrees Fahrenheit was a high on Christmas Day back in 2020. 58 degrees in 2019, and then 48 degrees back in 2018. Not even close to what's going to happen this Christmas Day. 33 degrees for a high. What a difference. Now look at the high temperature forecast here on the left for the 26th of December. We still see very cold temperatures. Very cold temperatures. We're starting to see a little bit of a moderation on the Gulf Coast by this point. On the 26th of December, where we now have highs in the 50s instead of the 40s. We do see high temperatures continuing to be in the 30s across Virginia, portions of western North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and north of that now across the Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York State area. That's where we're going to see high temperatures generally in the 20s. And then the coldest areas up over Minnesota and Wisconsin, where highs are generally the low teens, single digits up in northern Minnesota on Christmas, or on, rather 26th of December. Here are your temperature anomaly maps, really showing the delineation of the United States, where we have the upper level ridging over the west, where we have above normal temperatures indicated by the orange colors, and then below normal temperatures generally east of this line. I mean, the nation is literally divided right down the middle. If I were to draw a vertical line from the border of U.S. Canada there at North Dakota all the way down to the Texas Gulf Coast, literally anything right of the line would be below normal with the green shading. Then let's take a look at the temperatures and the temperature anomaly departure from normal forecast. On the 27th of December, we still see that pool of very cold air of the upper Midwest by this point. We are starting to see a few more 60s now back over the Florida Peninsula as well as parts of Texas. We are seeing the chill continuing though, generally low 40s across Virginia from the 27th of December for highs. And then it just gets progressively colder back towards the Midwest. Highs in generally in the low 20s for Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and highs in the teens across Wisconsin and parts of Minnesota, and low 20s generally across lower Michigan. Here is the temperature departure anomalies on the right, showing the green coloring, indicating below normal temperatures on the order of 10 to 14 degrees Fahrenheit. There are some pockets across the Midwest that are slightly colder than that, around 15 to 17 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. But notice again what's happening here. We're starting to see that Pacific jet is starting to work. Is really starting to work on this situation here in the U.S., pushing these warmer temperature anomalies to the east, slowly but surely. That strong west to east jet stream. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Now, the models have been hinting at some sort of energy at 500 millibars in the form of this orange coloring here, the vorticity. They've been hinting at this of a potential of some vorticity dropping down through the northwest flow, rounding the base of the trough, the deep trough over the eastern U.S., and then working its way potentially up the east coast, at least up to the mid-Atlantic. Here is the latest models. Here's a European deterministic model on the left. This is the 500 millibar forecast. All right, so anything with the orange coloring and red coloring indicates positive vorticity areas at that particular level of the atmosphere, and these positive vorticity areas are associated typically with what's known as shortwave troughs, or you'll hear often on the TV, they'll talk about upper air disturbances. All right. Whenever you see the orange coloring, that generally indicates they have some sort of rising or vertical air motion. And that vertical air motion generally is going to result in clouds, in a lot of cases, precipitation. All right, so right now we have a couple pieces of energy that the European operational model was showing today. I have a closed low at 500 millibars over the far western panhandle of Florida down in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. There's another piece of energy back here over parts of eastern Nebraska at this time. The main pocket of energy, of course, is associated with that very cold upper level low over eastern Canada. So that's remaining well to the north up towards northern New York State as well into parts of southeastern Canada. So we have energy is what I'm getting at. Energy here, energy here. This energy way out on the west coast is associated with that rain that's moving in. But these are the pieces here. This is what's going to be interesting. Can these two pieces merge? Will this system kind of drift up this way? And will that piece of energy merge through this troughing here? And can they merge right offshore and turn this trough more negatively tilted? Here is this is the Canadian model here on the right, showing you the same thing. There's a little bit of pieces of energy up here in the upstream flow, and then this is your more intense closed low. Now note where the position of this closed low is on the Canadian. It's over land. It's much further to the north over Georgia, and it appears to be more intense. Now granted, these scales aren't exactly aligned the same way, but this really does stick out, doesn't it? That brighter orange coloring. This is showing the location of a main piece of energy at 500 millibars associated with this positive vorticity. Here's the thing, as I previously mentioned, it may just be too warm to support any wintry precipitation by this point. As the Pacific jet stream blows milder Pacific air into the United States, pushes it from the west coast, eventually over to the east coast, by this point, this storm may not matter. If anything, it might just be a rainstorm. And then I put a little note here at the bottom for anybody living in the mid-Atlantic, specifically like coastal Virginia or the Carolinas in particular. The best climatological chances for snow are generally going to be between 20 January and 15 February. That generally is a time of year where water temperatures are going to reach their lowest point. They're going to be the coldest. And you can get more of these coastal systems climatologically in that time of the winter season. So don't be bummed out is what I'm getting at. I know we missed the big storm here, from Thursday and Friday, and the East Coast ended up in the warm sector of that storm. But keep in mind, we got a lot of winter ahead of us. And then this is really the sweet spot time period, specifically for southeastern Virginia, that I've noticed here. 20 January to 15 February. Those are the magic dates if you want snow. If that's the highest climatological time of year you're going to get it. You're not going to get these heavy snowstorms in December very often for these locations. So there's energy out there, something to watch. Now, the teleconnections, the European Ensemble Teleconnections Forecast, let's take a look what's going to happen here. The European Ensemble AO, Arctic Oscillation Forecast, showing a negative trend, but then it works its way closer to neutral after 28 December. Mainly neutral all the way out through early portion of the new year into 4 January. The NAO here on the upper right showing a similar trend going from negative towards neutral after the generally neutral 27 December right on over to 4 January, a general neutral trend to the NAO. We've had that negative NAO for such a long period of time associated with that blocking over the top Greenland and then extending westward of Greenland. Now it's going to go more neutral where neither lower nor higher heights are favored in that particular area of the world. Bottom left shows the European Ensemble EPO forecast showing a negative phase to this, and then it rebounds quite quickly to more of a slightly positive phase around Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then gets much stronger on the positive side after 27 December. Kind of works its way closer to neutral or not as positive by the 4th of January, but this is not a good sign if you want a continued wintry pattern in the east with this positive EPO now, vice the negative EPO. Okay, so now we're going to have more of what this would indicate is lower pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. Okay. No upper level ridges or blocking patterns in the Northeast Pacific with a positive EPO. And the bottom right here shows the European Ensemble PNA forecast. Now notice how the PNA it goes to the positive side here. Generally between the 23rd of December and the 28th of December. This is a nice window here. Now we obviously know about the winter storm system that's going to be impacting a lot of people, specifically in the Ohio Valley, working its way up into Canada, parts of the Midwest. This is a nice favorable pattern when you get this positive, more amplified ridging along the U.S. West Coast, because downstream of that, it's going to help support a deeper trough, the overall scheme of things. But look how this thing becomes just slightly positive. And one good thing I like to say about this EPS PNA forecast is at least it's not dropping off to crazy negative territory, right? That would support a deeper trough in the western U.S. So what am I looking at here? Out of all these teleconnections, just looking at this upper left AO forecast would support neither higher nor abnormally low heights, generally across the mid-latitudes. This would favor more of a zonal west-east jet stream configuration after 27 December. according to the AO forecast. The same thing here with the NAO forecast, more of a west to east jet stream here. Bottom left here. Now this is favoring more of a troughing over the Northeast Pacific with the EPO. But then this one here, bottom right, the PNA, generally again, slight ridging, slight high rises across the west. But I think this stronger EPO will probably overpower this slightly positive PNA and result in lower heights due to this much stronger negative EPO, or a positive EPO rather, with time. Now for the MJO forecast, latest Jeff's forecast, the green line showing the average of all the ensemble model members. Starting out right here in the null phase, that smaller inner circle, working our way out towards weak phase 4 and phase 5. So looking at convection or rising vertical air motion over the maritime continent over time. And then this green little thin line shows week 2 forecast out to January 3rd of the new year, generally showing it working its way back into the small inner circle and becoming null again. So this period here, where the convection does develop over the maritime continent, where convection is favored there, that's going to favor these phases here on the right. These are temperature composites on the right. Phase 4, orange coloring above normal temperatures. So you notice how above normal, generally mild, the lower 48 is in a phase 4 MJO, and we're starting to see that right here. Okay, by late December, we're in that phase 4 with the favored convection over the maritime continent. So it could be fairly mild. And, if this goes towards phase 5 as well, look, it's still mild in the upper Midwest, the east, slightly cooler over parts of the Western U.S. Now, I did take a look at the CFS just for kicks and giggles, and it generally keeps the MJO in the null phase throughout the entire period through early January. So right now, I'm not seeing any significant signals from the MJO that is going to sway the forecast and how the pattern sets up and the jet stream configuration and the resultant more above or colder than normal temperature pattern. I'm not seeing a significant play by the MJO at this point in time. All right, La Nina update. Here's the latest temperature anomalies courtesy of Tropical Tidbits website. These are temperature anomalies, sea surface temperature anomalies in degrees Celsius based on climatology from the 1981 to 2010 period. Blue coloring here sticking out like a sore thumb. This dark blue showing the colder than normal water temperatures associated with the La Nina that's still going on, triple dip La Nina time. And then we have some cooling waters over the Gulf of Alaska working their way down off the west coast of the United States. We see a little bit of above normal temperatures across the northern Pacific, working its way back towards the northwest Pacific. And there's warmer than normal temperatures across the tropical waters of the western Pacific, which is typical for a La Nina time period. In general, what you have along the east coast of the United States is some warmer temperatures over the western Atlantic and slightly warmer than normal over the east coast of the United States. And then here in the bottom right, showing you the latest temperature trace or temperature plot. We're currently situated at a minus 1.18 degrees Celsius below normal situation right now as of December 20th, 2022. And so we're still in that moderate La Nina period. We've seen occasional indications that maybe the La Nina was weakening as these water temperature departures, these cooler waters started warming a little bit and the temperature departures didn't become as significant. But then you see this decrease again, this cooling again, which occurred late November into early December. Then a little bit of warming again, like, okay, well, maybe it's like ending or the La Nina is finally weakening, but then it dips back down again. So moderate La Nina is continuing as a bottom line, and this could have a significant influence on our weather going forward. Now, looking at the Stratospheric polar vortex forecast, this is today's chart here on the left. Today, we currently have more stretched out. See these white solid lines, how stretched out they are? It's like holding a rubber band between your fingers and stretching it out. So what does this mean? The elongated vortex, kind of a weaker vortex at this point in time. But then looking at the GFS forecast here on the right, going out to, this would be the 30th of December on the right. And look how more symmetrical or circular in nature this vortex looks like. And look at the positioning where it is. It's generally over the North Polar areas by this point. So not only are you losing the weakening and that elongation look, which is stretching into the mid-latitudes, but it's looking at really getting its act together by the end of December here, the end of this year, over the North Pole area. Now, if this were to occur and to verify, that would generally favor milder temperatures across the middle latitudes, whether we're talking United States or Europe. Right, so we have a couple factors here that are telling us that, we could be seeing average to above average temperatures as we move ahead after this major Arctic plunge. And look at the longer range ensembles here. European ensemble, this is for New Year's Eve here on the left. The orange coloring is indicating higher than normal heights associated with upper level ridges, which is upper level ridges associated with milder temperatures and dry conditions. Blue coloring indicating troughing, which extends all the way down from the Pacific Northwest, Western Canada, all the way down to the Texas Gulf Coast by New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve. And we have a lot of anomalously lower than normal heights generally across Alaska, into the Gulf of Alaska. And then we have that subtropical ridge still orientated more west to east. And we've got that roaring west to east Pacific jet still on the 31st of December. Looking milder overall as we end the year heading into 2023. The graphic here on the right is just, this is also showing you the Jeff's model. So European ensemble left, GFS ensemble right, very similar looking pattern. A lot of model agreements in the longer range amongst the ensemble models, showing warmer temperatures and ridging from Eastern Canada, Hudson Bay, working their way down towards New England specifically, and then also milder than normal from the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic as we head into the last day of the current year, 2022. And then we do have troughing across further west back towards the southern plains into West Texas. Here are the final thoughts on tonight's video. The big theme of this video is the frigid air is on the way for the Eastern U.S. We're expecting the Arctic frontal passage generally by early Friday afternoon, this Friday afternoon, the 23rd of December. These temperature drops are just insanely crazy. On the order of 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit from early afternoon to early evening. That's the temperature drop you're looking at. In fact, I looked at the GFS forecast soundings, just in particular for Hampton Roads, Virginia. At 7 a.m., the air temperature was 57 degrees Fahrenheit. By 1 p.m., just 6 hours later, the air temperature was 29 degrees Fahrenheit. Just absurd drop in temperature. We will see wind chills dipping down into the single digits by early Christmas Eve morning, the 24th of December, for many locations along the coastal mid-Atlantic. I was seeing wind chill forecasts in the European model earlier today at 2 to 3 to 4 degrees, right in that range, 2 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit above zero for wind chills. That wind's going to be cranking all of Friday afternoon, Friday evening into Saturday. We do expect that wind to start abating or dying down as we head overnight, Saturday night into Christmas morning. Now, we could see showers, rain showers, as the Arctic front moves through. They may go over to a brief mix of rain and snow, or just a few snowflakes on Friday afternoon, the 23rd of December, as the Arctic front moves through the area. But that is about it. We're not expecting any significant accumulating snows for the coastal areas of the Mid-Atlantic, specifically southeastern Virginia. You go further north towards New England, and you're going to see some accumulations on the backside of the Arctic front. Wind's going to be that major factor. These could be damaging wind gusts. Let's hope the power grid can handle it. There's not a lot of power outages around the area based on this punch of very cold air. 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts possible. The cold is going to hold across the Eastern U.S., generally with a positive PNA initially, the negative NAO continuing, and then a negative AO pattern. For the 25th and 26th of December, it's staying cold. And again, just a major mention, it's very rare to have a colder Christmas anymore, it seems, across a lot of the Eastern U.S. And so at least this year it's going to feel like actual Christmas season as far as the cold temperatures go in winter. Temperature moderation begins on 27 December, but we're still going to be well below normal even on that day across the Eastern U.S. in many areas. The operational models, again, that tendency for them to warm the boundary layer just too quickly. I've seen it time and time again with very cold, dense Arctic air masses. The models just tend to think that the Arctic air is just going to magically modify. Here's the thing. We're in the month of, we're in late December. We're in a time period where you have lower incoming solar radiation, you got lower sun angles, you got shorter amounts of daylight times. And so all these factors are working against that rapid warming. So if you want to throw the time of the year, that's another consideration I look at. Now, we're watching the upper level energy, that vorticity for potential storm development, somewhere in that 27 to 28 December time period, as a pattern transition takes place from very cold to mild. We may see the temperatures just be too warm for wintry precipitation at that time for many of the sections of the mid-Atlantic along the coast specifically. Canadian and European models are on board generally with some sort of storm system developing. Now, the GFS, the 12Z run didn't show much, but I did take a look at the 18Z GFS, and it does show something now off the southeast coast. So it looks to me like the GFS is snapping out of it, waking up, and starting to get more in agreement with the Canadian and the European. Now, that 12Z European did show potential energy and storm development as well. The 00Z last night, not so much. But this is something to watch, this trend. We will definitely see milder temperatures by New Year's as the Pacific jet is very strong. Milder Pacific air is going to flood the United States. So if you got New Year's Eve plans this year, it's probably going to be fairly mild. It's going to be very tolerable. Just thank gosh that this Arctic air, the Arctic front didn't come through on New Year's Eve, or people would have been frozen out there ushering in the new year. Milder temps by New Year's Eve, as highs rebound in the 50s and 60s across the mid-Atlantic. We expect a major trough to lift out as most, again, of the U.S. is flooded with milder Pacific air, a more west to east, very strong Pacific jet. Coldest air and lowest heights are going to then shift back to the north, back to normal configuration where they're over the Arctic area. The strong stratospheric polar vortex. This concerns me. This concerns me right here. Right? Some of our mildest Januaries have occurred when the polar vortex in the stratosphere is very strong. So I am concerned. I'm hopeful that if you're a winter fan like me, that this isn't the only shot of winter weather. Like, this might be the highlight of the winter season, and I hope I'm wrong. But if this polar vortex gets rolling like this, gets this strong and this symmetrical in appearance, we could see a very mild stretch of weather. Plus, we have that positive EPO that would favor a trough over the western U.S. or definitely over the northeastern Pacific at a minimum. That would promote a mild start to the new year. I mean, we're talking 60s for high temperatures on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day potentially across the Eastern U.S., specifically the Mid-Atlantic. Now, again, could we have seen the coldest temperatures coming up with this Arctic plunge for the entire winter? Again, I hope I'm wrong. I certainly hope that's not the case. I certainly hope, as we head into January, specifically the mid to latter parts of January, and into February even. I was looking at the CFS. I was looking at some of the other longer range projections, model projections, showing a fairly cold February. But again, these things are so finicky and they flip back and forth from day to day, these longer range forecasts. So they really can't be trusted this far out, is what I'm getting at. All right, that wraps things up tonight. Spot on weather. Thank you so much for watching this video and for subscribing to my channel. Just want to take the time to wish everybody a very happy holiday season. Tomorrow's the winter solstice, the 21st of December. I hope everybody has a great holiday season, a great upcoming Christmas weekend. Just be prepared to dress very warmly, specifically Friday afternoon, Friday evening, Saturday, and Christmas Day, because it's going to be cold. Very, very cold. All right, that wraps things up. We'll be watching, see if there's a storm next week as well. Until next time, everybody, happy holidays, and take care, and God bless everyone.